2 games and everything looking good at this point. Florida State on a roll, and now they break into ACC play, taking on Boston College as a huge favorite. Talking Noles for the next 60. Leave the comments and questions there in the chat. We got Big Game James Coleman right next to me, Den Media Group, and we will drop the link in the chat. Everyone needs to head on over to Den Media Group. Chris Frazier joining us, of course, from Spearatics. He's got a Thursday night show with James, 7:30 Eastern there on Spearatics. Again, we will drop the link in the chat, and we've got the Renegade Report. George, of course, who anchors our post-game show here, the Voice of College Football. Join him on the Renegade Report. All right, guys, we will rev it up, and we'll get James going on this one. Southern Miss is not a bad football team, actually, out of the group of 5, and they've been to bowl games in recent years and posted 7 and 8 win seasons. If anyone paid attention, they played Miami fairly close for about 3/4 last year. So this is what elite teams do: is they don't win this game by a couple touchdowns. James, they put the throttle down at 66-13.
Yeah, and not just that, they treated it like it was almost a scrimmage. 102 players played. Just for people for perspective, there's 85 scholarship players, all of which did not play because you have some guys that are hurt. So I would argue that about 10, and Chris or George could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say at least 10 scholarship guys did not play due to injury, and so you're probably playing about 32 walk-ons, which is an impressive amount of guys getting reps and getting development. So all in all, I think it was great. There's a lot of things to be critical of, but when you really step back and put things in perspective, it was just an all-around great performance by Mike Norvell and the Florida State Seminoles.
Chris, what's your initial take on this one?
Well, Florida State did what they were supposed to, first and foremost. Secondly, it was quite enjoyable for me personally to see those mixture of 102 players, the majority of walk-ons, and a lot of the true freshmen get in and take really meaningful snaps, because it was about midway through the second quarter when you started seeing like Vendrevious Jacobs and Blake Nicholson and a couple of other true freshmen come in and start playing. If you're in the second quarter, I don't care what the score is, those are meaningful snaps throughout a football game. And to watch them perform at a level that did not allow Southern Miss to score, but I think they scored 1 touchdown against our second and third string in totality. But for them to only allow that 1 score, it's quite impressive, because it shows the depth of the team, and it shows that Florida State has not just depth of personnel, but depth of quality backup players that are still performing at a high level.
George, your take.
Yeah, man, it was just a great time, like everybody said. When Blake Nicholson almost came down with that big-time interception, to see him get out there as a freshman and get his head around on that ball, that was huge. Conrad Hussey out there making plays. He almost had a big pick really early in the game. You want to talk about not even in garbage time, I believe that was in the first quarter. He almost came down with one. It was just great to see. Norvell gave it to them guys as well. He did not slack off one bit. He gave 100% to coaching the 30-something walk-ons, like James pointed out. And it was just an overall good effort, and kind of what Chris said. We did what we were supposed to do. 2013, you look at these great teams, it didn't matter who it was on the schedule. They were getting, routed, in the second half was about the backups. And we weren't able to completely do that to LSU. It was the second half of the fourth quarter before that one was over, but they really handled, business this week, and I'm expecting the same thing with Boston College.
Yeah, I'd like to take this back to James and Chris here, since we didn't have them last week following the big win against LSU. So, James, that was an impressive showing. It's the reason I've got this team ranked number 1 in the country, and they scored 31 straight points.
Rewind it.
What's that?
I didn't hear what you said. Something caught me. Something was in my ear.
Got Florida State ranked number 1 in the country. Most impressive team won the most impressive game, tied in a sense with Texas going to Alabama. But of course, that was a game until about 5 minutes left. So this was the most emphatic win, and I base it on resume. So this is the number one team in the country.
No, that's fair. But yeah, definitely
based on performance.
No, without a doubt. I just am trying to like.
Oh, we wanted to hear that from James. So until we get James back, Chris, I want the LSU take, because you know what really stood out to you as the impressive portion of this. I know there's a long list, but where do you go to first?
So me personally, you know, you it being your first game of the season, you've got question marks as far as the transfers that came in. You've got question marks as far as how much rust is the team going to have. And when people did their list, you know, they would say that Florida State overall as a football team, probably a better team. If you looked at Florida State's quarterback situation, they had it kind of in a tie with Daniels. Wide receiver core, they gave us the up. They said we had a better wide receiver group. But when it came to coaching, they said that LSU had the coaching on top of Florida State. They were a better coaching staff. And I think to see the most impressive part to the Florida State LSU game to me was the second half adjustments that the coaches made at halftime when they went in and they saw the holes that LSU had in their defense, when they stated what LSU was trying to formalize on offense and how to stop it and what needed to be done. And you saw the gameplay and plan change slightly. It wasn't like a huge, ordeal, but they did change where the safety came down at, and also in the nickel spot. Then you also saw some changes on the offensive line. You also saw the dual back set because we weren't able to run the ball as effectively as we thought we should be able to. So we brought in the dual back set, and then we were able to start moving the ball on the ground as we expected to in the beginning. So to see Coach Fuller make the adjustments on defense, to see Atkins and Mike Norvell make the adjustments on offense, it was very slap them in the face because they said that LSU had the better in coaching. So to me, that was the most impressive. Player-wise, Keon Coleman obviously was the most impressive. His debut was quite nice. It was absolutely electric. So that's as far as I'll go. I don't want to take everyone's answer that would give an answer, so that's where I'll stop. I'll say that the coaching second half adjustments were the most impressive.
James, everyone's sitting on the edge of their seats now to get your answer. You're on mute.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what happened. My camera just cut off, but basically, I was saying I don't like being ranked number one at this point. You got to learn how to be number one. I like that. I respect what you said. I like being able to have something to like put over them. Say, hey man, we got to still fight for
Nobody's
it. Nobody's
paying attention to my rankings, James.
Well, you're doing it. Brett McMurphy, Matt Baker, who hates Florida State, has had us ranked as number one as well, and then Reese Davis, I believe. So it was a very interesting group of people. So but that being said, the way coming off of a short week, playing not an unskilled team, but a team that you don't have to like really build up for, a team that you just feel like you're just better than, is a very tough what's the country phrase where road to hoe or something like that, or some phrase like that. It's basically it's tough. We saw what happened with Clemson, even coming off of Duke, going in and having a tough battle with Charleston Southern. In that you can get up for the LSU's, but it's hard when you know Southern Miss. Also with the game plan, had somebody told me we were going to play 102 players, I would have been like, man, that's not the most optimal way to do it. I'd rather just go ahead and destroy them and kill them, and then maybe weave people in. But it was so impressive what they did against LSU. If you take away the 6 drops in that first half, and though let's just say 4 of those are caught, Jordan Travis is probably atop the Heisman Trophy talks. He's probably over He's definitely over well over 300 yards passing, maybe even close to 400. I don't remember exactly what he had, but I know his numbers would be definitely improved. His completion percentage, when I did the math, he would have been like 28 for 31 if those drops didn't happen and he was able to get those completions. So it's just all around. We're seeing what Mike Norvell, you know what? It's disrespectful. We're seeing what Alex Atkins is as a play caller, and I'm taking so much pride because while I might not have been number one on the Mike Norvell bandwagon, because, but it was more me holding him accountable to what his words were. I am very much so, and my family, an Adam Fuller fan. Like, we are big fans of our defensive coordinator, and I think his second half adjustments have still been second to none.
What are you looking at, George?
Oh, just pointing at the chat you put up there from TillDog12. Go Noles, y'all smash that like button and better yet, become a member.
Yeah, Till Dog, appreciate that. I got to say, I was watching that game and, I don't like to miss picks, and I missed one there. And I was kicking myself the whole time because I was like, we talked about this the whole off season. So why did I still miss this pick? Because Florida State, LSU hung in the game. Florida State was a better team in the first half, but LSU hung in the game. Florida State made some bad mistakes on defense, bad mistakes in penalties that I thought were okay. I don't like to see a team get hit for personal fouls because it's not things that happened in a football sense. But if the officials have to call it, they have to call it. And I think for the most part, I don't think they did a horrible job, but they were on the border there. They were on the fence. But then Florida State took over, and it's not like they did now play LSU in a number of ways, but the one that was the most obvious was their wide receivers abusing LSU secondary, like we talked about for months and months and months and months. So that was the most obvious thing that anybody that watched 3 football games could figure out in terms of Florida State's advantage there, and it played out on the field.
What I was trying to say to you earlier, Mark, you said nobody was paying attention to your rankings. You would be surprised at who pays attention to your show. And the reason that I say that, and I'll make it short and sweet, I made an oops on my show and said too much about some injuries, and James got contacted by a staff member. I got contacted by 2 staff members, and I just said too much. I didn't mean to. I thought it was general knowledge, so it wasn't on purpose. I did it by no means on purpose, but you'll be surprised who's watching.
So we should go right into the injury report now.
Nope.
Is what you're telling me. Okay.
I have no updates.
Yeah, now I don't know what I can say because, so I don't know about injuries.
Just don't talk about
we can talk about who didn't play, but that's about as far as that goes. They want to keep that stuff in-house, that's for sure. I know that left tackle Robert Scott did not play in the Southern Miss game, and somebody else didn't play. The center, Maurice Smith, also did not play. We will see if they're back this week. I would put my money on the Clemson game, maybe seeing them make a run back, but we just know that they didn't play.
Did this Southern Miss game tell us anything about this football team before we start talking the future?
It told us that that we still have some things to clean up as far as them trusting each other. One of the things that came to me, and I'll say this, who told me this, because I have anybody who follows me knows I have a great relationship with Kalen Deloach and their family. But we were talking, and he was saying like some of the miscues that happened early come from a lack of being comfortable with the other guy that you're playing with. Florida's like, obviously Kalen plays with Tatum Bethune. The ones are comfortable playing with the ones, but in a good defense or any kind of championship team, you have plenty of guys that rotate and play. So what happens is you get a DJ, I'm just using the name, a DJ Lundy that comes in. you're not really 100% sure what DJ can do. You don't feel as comfortable with him as you did with Tatum. So you try to operate outside of what you're coached to do, and you're overplaying your strengths, which make you susceptible to big plays. One of the things, and I think Chris and George got a chance to watch the game with me. Chris watched a couple games with me. He also sees why I don't like watching it around people. But I was telling everybody, and everybody was complaining about this one concept. I call it's a post wheel concept, slant wheel concept, but basically a pick, a simple pick concept. You have two wide receivers running slants or a post of different depths, and you have somebody either run a flat out into the flat, or they run the wheel route or a swing route. But the whole purpose is to get the corner that's supposed to be staying true. I believe they were on a cover 3 in that scenario, to get greedy and follow the wide receiver. If he turns his head and shoulders to where the wide receiver is, quarterback dumps that ball off in the flat, you got a good athlete out there in space. Or if you're playing man coverage, we saw this in Colorado where Travis – actually, we saw in Colorado where they didn't run man coverage. They switched it. Travis Hunter stayed true, got the interception in the goal line. But what was happening was Florida State was getting a little greedy, and they kept hitting us with that. Luckily, Southern Miss's athletes weren't as great as what we will face later in the future. But what you saw was guys getting in there that aren't used to playing with each other, and somebody trying to do somebody else's job. Now, I think once Coach Fuller and those guys got in that behind a little bit, they kind of corrected that, and you saw that play not being able to hit them. Because one thing I can tell you as an offensive guy, what we do is we call it circle of the duck. Once we find out who the duck is, we're going to make that person have a long day, and we will run the exact same play over and over again and let our rivals and everybody else tell you Alex Atkins is definitely a circle the duck kind of offensive coordinator. They said let them tell it we run counter 52 times a game. But that's kind of the thought process behind why what I think they need to do better is the little things and what they're coached to do, because when we play a better team, as we saw last year, again, I'll bring this back. Wake Forest actually scored on that play. If I remember correctly, we got big yardage early in the first half on a similar play. And LSU's first big play to start the game off, similar concept. Again, we're not going to always be able to just step back and adjust, and we can't spot people yards and points. So we got to do a little bit better job at that. That would be the thing that I'm looking at.
I thought this was pretty clever out of Colorado. They did that exact thing, scoring their first touchdown against TCU. They had twins to the left. They ran slants. Basically, they were just running a pick. They ran the wheel route with a back. Then for their final touchdown, they went trips left. And they all did the same thing, but they brought the back from somewhere else. They had him as like an H back in motion and did the same thing and just tossed him the ball wide open. That was their game-winning touchdown.
I think what we learned from the Southern Miss game in particular is that Washington, who came in for Mo at center, may well be the best center that Florida State has on the roster. And I love Mo so much, and people know that. Huge fan of his. I love his story, love everything about the young man. I think he's a great athlete. But this is the life of where Florida State's finally getting the pieces in that if you go down, you might lose your spot. And I think that our center play was ultimately better, especially if the blocking core of run defense goes. We were able to block better from the center position. So what people don't know is that Southern Miss actually has a better than good defensive line. A lot of these guys are probably going to get an opportunity at the next level, and based off of their draft grade and things to that nature, they're probably going to be Sunday players. So I was really excited to see how our offensive line adjusted with having Robert Scott out as well. Bless Harris is just as good. And we didn't have that even 2 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, we've got an offensive line where 8 to 10 guys can come in, and you might end up with they might be having a better day than even your stars are. So I was really impressed with our offensive line play. And as James, myself, and I know there's a couple others, I know Logan paid attention to it quite well also, but the best vision running back that we've got is definitely Keziah Holmes. That kid's vision is phenomenal. He breaks through areas that I don't think people understand because of his vision behind the blocks. So we have learned that Florida State has a real, true number 2, I guess you would say, running back. I would arguably say that if you give him more opportunities, he could argue to be the number 1 because just his ability to get through the line and gain yards. And our offensive line is tied 3rd in the country with the most yards before contact. They're given 4.1 yards of space before anyone contacts them. So our offensive line's doing an amazing job.
No doubt. I'm right there with you. That was, to have 2 guys to be able to sit out and you still have 6, guys. You have 5 guys and a swing guy to come in anytime at an extremely high level. And then still more young guys like Jalen Early to get in there and get experience. Julian Armella to come in as like a 3rd tackle is just ridiculous to have on your offensive line. One thing that I loved about the game, early in the first half, most of the time Jordan was in there. You saw Norvell, he didn't, and I was even getting kind of aggravated sometimes. I was like, damn, James, why aren't they running the ball more? And it's like, well, they're out there getting better. What good would it do to just run up the middle every time? Sure, they probably could, but they really worked these guys, unfortunately. Johnny had his drops. Keon had some unbelievable plays. Jaheim Bell had an unfortunate drop, not like him at all. So it wasn't the smoothest in the world, but at the same time, they executed. The offensive line handled business, and the score went up 7, 14, 21. They really, made a team that is really good and will probably battle for that Sun Belt championship this year look like they weren't. And that offense, too, just to speak for how good the defense did and so many young guys that played, they had an explosive offense. Mims, Frank Gore Jr., their quarterback Wiles, they're all players. Like, I doubt anybody this year has anywhere near the success we had on defense against them. So just really overall, I'd give it an A- for the effort.
The other thing too that fans got to realize is that we saw Tate get really good live reps against somebody that's not his defense. He was 3 for 3, I believe, 2 touchdowns. We saw Biscuit we got a lot of guys got in the end zone. What's Biscuit's real? I always forget. I just like his nickname so much that I forget his name. Anyways, Biscuit. You guys know who Biscuit is. Looked very fast for a big guy. So I like when big guys score touchdowns. But bigger than that, and George brought up a good point. When you're watching games like this, it's like you really are craving for one player to just have a dominant game, right? Nobody had a dominant game, but then we found out why nobody had a dominant game. Nobody really got to play. There was 62 snaps, I believe, from scrimmage for Southern Miss. That's not, and I think there were 69 total snaps from scrimmage for Florida State. Like, just put that in perspective. Florida State scored 66 points, 69 snaps. It's almost a point per snap. Like, that's a lot of points scored. A lot of quick drives. But Florida State, even in that, had over 300 yards rushing, averaging 8 yards a carry. And our fan base is saying things like, what's wrong with Trey Benson? What's wrong with like, it's such a 180 from Mark since I've been doing your show from what we've had, that is like people are finding things to be upset about. And I feel like this. I feel we're finding things to nitpick about because we're afraid of success. We don't want to be hurt. What happens, Mark? Me too. I'm just as guilty, Mark. There's nothing in me that should not say Florida State's the number 1 ranked team in the nation based off of what I see and the fact that, like you, I watch a lot of football over the weekend. But I'm afraid to get hurt. I don't want to say that, and then they disappoint me. And I think that's right now a lot of FSU fans are in this situation where they're like, well, what happens if, they're not as good as I think they are? And then I got to go to the water cooler, or worse, I got to go to Big 3 Twitter. And now everybody has to tell me they suck. And Miami's feeling really good, and rightfully so, about their victories over Texas A&M and the other Miami, and then they'll blow out BCU. What am I going to say to these guys? And a lot of it is right now, you take that as it comes. The team is good. when you find out a lot of this stuff that's kind of come out, 102 players playing, it all makes sense. Jordan and with no real injuries. So I'm looking forward to this Boston College game coming up. One thing at the school that I coach at, my son's godfather is the head coach. He always he's such a good mindset guy. He's doing real good with the mental games. He coaches kids and by bringing up adversity. He always tells them there's adversity. We have adversity drills in practice to try to get them off of their game, to try to see how they'll handle emotional swings when things don't go their way. I've seen Mike kind of do this too, where he'll really jump on somebody just to see how they'll react. Maybe something that he wouldn't normally jump on them about, but to see if they're going to cry about it. But I really want to. This is going to be with the hurricane coming to the Northeast. Hopefully, you're going to be safe, Mark. You know, they are not used to that kind of stuff. But with stuff coming that way, wet game, rainy game, on the road, that damn red bandana game, very noble what they do for it. I am like most FSU fans. We haven't been on the right side of the red bandana games too often. But, we just, there's a lot of adversity that could strike here. How will they handle it? Will they slap them in the face like they did last year? Or will they let a team that's not as good as them stick around? That's what I want to see.
And while I understand that Trey Benson didn't have over 100 yards of rushing, he did have 3 rushing touchdowns. So not exactly sure what fans want to see from Trey other than, if he gets 130 yards but doesn't score a touchdown, he's not doing good enough in the red zone. If he scores 3 touchdowns but don't get 150 yards, he's not doing good enough as far as getting rushing yards. I think that he did fine, especially for the limited amount of snaps that he played. But jumping into a Boston College game, and everybody keeps asking this question is, what do we do if the winds are blowing? What do we do when it's raining? And we are from Florida the last time that I checked, and we deal with hurricanes more than anyone, and it rains every day in the state of Florida. So I don't think that we can use those things as an excuse. And remember that both teams have to play in the conditions, not just ours. And we're a much more talented team than Boston College, and I also don't expect the weather or the other opposing team to give us too many problems as far as what we're going to do. If we need to keep the ball on the ground and limit passes because of it being wet, potentially raining at the time of play, I believe that our rushing offense will do well enough to score more points than Boston College, and that our defensive line and front seven will do their job as far as stopping the run, as Boston College will try to move the ball the same way, seeing how you're trying to take care of the football and not turn it over. So I personally believe that we handle what we need to handle against Boston College, and fans should worry less and just root for the team.
Too bad you're not showing up on Thursday. It's going to be 77 and sunny, but by Saturday, 67 and, a lot of mess, it appears, in the afternoon there in Chestnut Hills.
Yeah, there's no doubt. If Holy Cross's quarterback is any indication of what Jordan Travis and our offense is going to be able to do, it's going to be a long, long day for Boston College. So I don't see the need, like Chris said, if the winds are blowing. Mike Norvell's kind of comment was like all of our quarterbacks throw tight spirals, so it should cut through there just fine. We're all from Florida, like Chris said, but yeah, I think the ground games is going to be where it's at against Boston College. They have some weapons. Castellanos, the kid from, I believe, Ware County, a big high school that Florida State quarterback Luke Cromenhawk just beat, the first team to beat him in like 2 years the other night. He's an athlete. He's a stud. He's going to make some plays. He'll make a play or two here. They have a couple running backs, but I just I don't see their defense being able to hold up against our rushing attack at all.
I would probably win a few bets if I asked everyone what football I watched this afternoon. It was Boston College and Holy Cross, and not because I'm just so committed to this show that I had to do prep work for this show, but I always like to have something on in front of me that's going to make me better at what I do while I'm working. And I just flipped on the ACC network. It was Holy Cross and Boston College. And I thought, okay, let's take in some of this game. Not that I learned a whole lot from the 15 or 16 plays that I watched, but Castellanos, I didn't know that he played this game. Emmett Moorhead was their starting quarterback last year, and he started the opener. and he miraculously beat NC State with a last-second touchdown pass last year. But I didn't get an indication from the broadcast that he was hurt, just that they opted to go with Castellanos in game 2. But yeah, it's a team that recruits probably worse than anybody else in the conference. Basically, if you believe in the recruiting rankings, their last Wake is down there, but Wake's been able to do much more with their talent than Boston College. So this is you might see this coach for the last time, Jeff Hafley. This might be his last go around facing Florida State, because if he doesn't turn it around in a hurry after 3-9. Then he's going to be out. Falconer TRX, appreciate you being here. Falconer coming over from the much loved Miami show. FSU looks good, but the U does too. Okay. And we also have Michael. I ain't letting no Miami fan take over this chat. So if we can get into a bidding war, we're good with that. So that's all well and good, folks. So don't let Miami defeat you on the super chats. Don't allow that to happen. Appreciate you. James, what's going on there at Den Media Group? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I've been trying to get like the background noise with kids. I try to eliminate that. But man, it's been fun. Obviously Florida State's winning, but it's been a fun summer. Me, Chris, George, my guy CJ Wilson, we had an incredibly hectic tailgate that was awesome. That presented itself challenges. But you know, we're doing all of our different things. I think we were over 100 members, but right now is that weird time to re-up. So if any of my members are watching and listening to this, it's be a great time to re-up your $3.99 to $99 membership for Den Media Group. But we're about 155, I believe, people, viewers, subscribers away from 3,000. Once we get to 3,000 subs, we give away $300 live on Big Games BS. We give the a second place prize of however many likes we have for that show. So in theory, we can have somebody win 300. We can get 300 likes, and somebody else could get $300. But we gave away we're giving away tickets. We're giving away hotel discounts in the city of Tallahassee. All of those cool things are over at Den Media Group. And as we expand the channel, we plan to do more. We have a weekly college football pick'em and a pigskin pick'em for the NFL, where you can win $50 each week if you win, and then the overall winner will get a prize. And we've got a fantasy football league inside of the chat. So Mark, you have motivated me to do more inside of my YouTube community. I ain't gonna lie, YouTube is way more fun when you start getting engaged than any other. It's like Twitter, all of that jazz, all rolled up into one. So, but we've been having a good time, and we got Jack's Dream, Jack Coleman, no relation to me or Keon. We have a young man who's blind. He had a tumor right behind his brain, and the surgery and the treatments basically destroyed his vision. But he's a Florida State fan. And what I need people to do is you can go to @BigGameJames_36. Do whatever you're compelled. If you're compelled to give, great. All we want the people to do is hear the story. I want this young man to go. He's going to the Duke game. He's going to homecoming. I want him to feel like he is a 5-star prospect. That is my goal. That is my dreams. We're working with compliance to see what all stuff that Florida State can do. But I want that Duke game to be if that's going to be one of the last, because his vision is slowly declining as well. If that's going to be one of the last things that he sees, I want it to be memorable. I want it to be imprinted on his brain. I want all of the cool stuff that Florida State fan base can be. So I'm putting them in the same. Chris has seen, if y'all go see, Chris knows how the hotel rolls. He's going to stay at the same hotel. He's going to get food. We're going to deck him out in gear. He's going to get on the field. He's going to hopefully meet. Again, some of the stuff is all based upon compliance. NCAA is weird about stuff like that. But that's my big thing right now is I'm making sure that Jack's Dream is as dope as it can possibly be.
And so the best way to do that is just follow you on Twitter, so everybody sees it right there on the banner. So Is that going to stand out if somebody goes to your Twitter feed?
It's my pin tweet.
Okay.
And you can read what Jack's going through. I tried to pronounce exactly what it was, and it's a good thing I didn't go to medical school because I would have failed just by that alone. But and then there's other ways that you could, if you want to donate cash. But really, what was cool, and the man's family saw me tweet. I just posted a picture of me and Jack. It went viral. The kid's brother, his older brother's brother and sister saw it. They were like, "Yo, Jack's famous. He's on Twitter. He's on this. He's on that." So, and then the kid, was very humble. He didn't even know how to speak. And I said, "Man, don't even worry about it." I'm mad at him because he wants this to be his dream, and that's something that I can give him very easy. They're gonna give him Hawaii and all these other places. I'm like, "Hey, man, let's go to Hawaii. If you feel compelled, give me a ticket too. Let me come hang out with you, but." I could get you into a Florida State game and a VIP experience. We do it for lesser people, so I can't wait.
The other thing you can do, everyone, is retweet, and it's even more effective if you quote tweet. I saw some kind of statistic. If you quote tweet, gains more attention than if you just retweet it. But regardless, if you repost it, I guess is the way we talk now under X. But repost that. Then, there are people that follow all of you on Twitter that don't even follow James, me, George, or Chris. And we're just going to spread the word more. And there's more likelihood that people are going to get involved and see that as well. So if you're on Twitter, you can not only check it out yourself, but you can retweet James' post as well. And we have dropped the link to Den Media Group as well. That's in the chat. We make it easy for everyone. You just click on the link. You're right there to Den Media Group. Chris, what's going on at Spear Addicts?
Well, first off, I'll give a shout out to two of the new sponsors that we have. One is Powerade US, and the other one is Picked, vintage clothing and vintage merchandise from Florida State. So huge shout out to both of the new sponsors. Y'all will start seeing their logos and stuff on the show. I will do a couple of quality drops as far as what they've got going on at Powerade. And I showed up yesterday to my house, and there was two really, really large boxes of Powerade and Powerade gear at my house. So that's really cool on top of the sponsorship itself. And Picked I got to give James his, but gave us the shirts that they made for the FSU-LSU game. And also their sponsorship goes a long ways as far as what they're trying to do and what we're trying to do with them. So if you want to see Picked, they're in Tallahassee. If you cannot see them by being in Tallahassee, because Florida State fans are all over the country, you can go to picked.com and check out their store. They have a lot of stuff on there that's vintage Florida State clothing and others. Our show time has officially changed. We do our shows on Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time. 8 p.m. Eastern time is the new show time. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to the Spear Addicts members because now I am at the halfway mark. What I mean by that is I now have half as many members as I do subscribers. So I don't know exactly what that is. I did, but it's like 3,450 subscribers. So half of that are also members of the channel. So I really appreciate that.
Can you give me that formula, Chris? We got 42,000 subscribers on our main channel. If you can give us that 50% ratio, I think I'd be doing all right.
The only thing that I can say is give information out that you're not supposed to so that people from Florida State contact you and tell you to shut up.
Yeah, I don't have those kind of connections. All right. Very good. So we will leave a banner here on the screen so people can see it and actually have it in your memory. It's Monday and Thursday at 8:30 Eastern on Spear Addicts. All right, George, what do you have going on?
Man, just super excited about this week's post-game show. If y'all haven't been checking out the Voice of College Football FSU post-game show, we have the Southern Miss one up. Our guy Adrian from Knowles After Dark just got back in town from a deployment. We're going to do a show with him sometime tomorrow. I'm not sure whether we're going to release it first thing Friday morning or go live tomorrow around 9. But y'all make sure to look out for that. I'm really excited. I've been wanting to do a podcast with him for a while. And also check these guys out, man. I owe a lot of what I've got to Chris and James. I got to sit with those guys at the game in the Champions Club. Just support everybody. And thanks for joining us, man. We just happy to be here, man. Just happy to do it.
Awesome stuff. Appreciate you picking up the post game in particular and being here every Wednesday, George. We appreciate that for sure. All right, let's clean up some super chats. Folks going back and forth. What did we miss here? We've got Falconer TRX. Daughters at BC beat Miami at Red Bandana. It's big. Think we got that. Yes. Congratulations to your daughter. That's a fine school to get into. Michael, I ain't letting no Miami fan take over this chat. There we go.
Never.
Michael, appreciate you. We got William coming back. Go Knowles. Blitz TVD all game long. Are they playing this Saturday? FSU 50, Miami 21.
Got a while before that one comes up.
Then we've got Michael coming back. That's for you, TRX. Big Bank. All right. Good. Appreciate everyone being here. We do this every Wednesday, and we've got a nice little crowd of 140. So bring a friend or 2 or 50 with you next week. And we appreciate you being here talking Florida State football. And it is more fun when you win, right? Yeah. But I know the nitpicky, knowing the fan base that I'm involved in. Yeah, that it's never good enough. But that's a good problem. That is a good problem to have. So, of course, we want to stick to Florida State. So if there's anything we need to get to, you guys chime in. But while we're looking at the ACC, 2 big events on the field were, yes, Texas A&M has its dysfunction. There's no question about that. But they also have a lot of talent. And I watched the majority of that game, and Miami did look pretty damn good after going down by a couple scores earlier, giving up a couple special team scores at least. And then the other would be that Duke team that if I would have just went with my gut, I did take the 13 points easily. Didn't even think about that. Give me the 13 in Duke. But my goodness, they showed up, and I knew that they were going to be no joke. And that was a shocker for everyone on the opening weekend. So what are your takes about Clemson and Miami in particular?
I think Miami is much improved. But I don't want to, and you're right, both teams have a tremendous amount of talent. So let's just be honest about that. When you look at all of the blue chip ratios and all of the different things, Miami is a top 10 team. Based upon that, even with all of the attrition that they had, and Texas A&M 2 years ago had one of the greatest arguably one of the greatest defensive line recruiting classes since they've been doing the rankings, and they had the number 1 overall class. But both teams were marginal and mid at best. They both were 5-7 the year before. I think Texas A&M did have a very good win against LSU, but the game was close last year, and it was close this year. And and we talked about this on your show before, Mark, and it's not a disrespect thing. I just think the SEC has had the best team in the nation the majority of the last 20 years. That doesn't make you the best conference. That just means you have the best team. And though there have been guys who have flip-flopped, it's still, I would argue, to my opinion, the Big Ten probably has more better teams. And if you look at what's happened to the SEC, they are 0-for-5 in the big games, big cross-conference games. When they played the top dog, a better team in the Pac-12, when they played one of the better teams in the ACC, when they've played the better teams in other places, they've played 3 ACC teams that would be considered the better teams, and they've lost all 3 of those games, Miami being one of them. But I just think when we can't unlook at what happened when Miami played Miami as well as what happened with this. And a guy brings up bringing pressure on TVD. Can they get I can't think of his name. I don't want to give him disrespect because I actually think he's a decent receiver. Resposado. I know he's Spanish. He's got the Rest Pro, whatever his name is. But, can he be that number 1 guy? Can you rely on these other guys? What happens when you go up against true not just NFL talent because we saw them get recruited in high school. What happens when you go up against guys in the secondary who have NFL draft grades? And they won't see that until they go through a murderer's row between having to play Clemson, North Carolina, which, again, I don't necessarily think North Carolina's defense is scary, but North Carolina has a quarterback with a live arm and wide receivers that can go get it. Florida State, I would even argue Georgia Tech has more talent than what a lot of people give them credit for. And Miami plays Louisville as well, right?
I'll check.
Yeah, but
no, I don't think we do. We don't play Louisville.
No, not us. Miami plays Louisville.
Oh, my bad.
But that being said, I do think Miami is much improved, and I would like to see what they're doing. It would be great for the nation if Miami and Florida State came into the game, and let's say, because this could happen. I don't think it will happen on Florida State side, but let's say either both come into the game with one being undefeated and the other one having no more than 1 or 2 losses. I think it would be an amazing game, amazing atmosphere to be able to watch. It will remind me of the things of my youth, seeing top-ranked Miami teams and Florida State teams going up against each other in Tallahassee, which would be awesome. So, a hater would say that they don't think that they're any good. And I've never been a hater. One can respect it, but I also think like, hey, let's just chill out on a lot of the stuff, the trash talking back and forth yet until you can put up a string of wins like that.
Hey, Chris, before your take on all of that, do we have any updated information or any reason to believe anything's going to happen with Darrell Jackson's case?
Based off of what's going on with the North Carolina wide receiver and
as Walker,
I would assume that the same thing's going to come across the board for Darrell Jackson. It's sad and it's unfortunate that the NCAA can't get out of their own way and realize that both of these young men transferred before the rules changed, and they were being accredited to understand that they would be able to play most likely. But unfortunately, I don't expect anything to happen. I think he's going to end up setting the remainder of the season, and hopefully he'll stay, and we'll see him next year. I don't see why we wouldn't and why he wouldn't stay, but hopefully that's the case. And a little bit on recruiting, Florida State has been doing a very good job recruiting. We had over 60-some-odd players at the Florida State Southern Miss game. That was huge because that's not like a huge game for anyone to really want to go watch. We also had very close to a sellout crowd at Tallahassee, which was way better than I anticipated personally. But with that being said, Florida State's doing a phenomenal job on a lot of the guys that they're trying to flip right now. They've also got official visits coming from a lot of those guys that we are trying to flip. And based off of, I don't know if I can talk about 2 in particular. I'm not going to until I get clarification that I can speak on this. But there are 2 really high recruits that are really starting to favor Florida State. They're starting to wear their gear at high school games. They're starting to wear their Florida State gear up to the point of the game, also during school hours. So a lot of gentlemen are starting to respect and lean toward Florida State more so than who they are currently verbally committed to. They're starting to pull a lot of their Florida State gear out. So Florida State's doing a phenomenal job on the front of wide receivers. Recruiting-wise, they're also doing a phenomenal job on a couple of defensive ends. They're also doing really good on a couple of that's the 2 we're doing really good in the defensive measure of gentlemen. So to jump on the situation of what James was just speaking on, he's being more respectful than I'm going to be right now. I need Miami to play somebody that's worth talking about when you beat them. I get that Texas A&M was ranked next to last, 24th or 23rd, whatever it was. But Texas A&M is having the exact same problems that they did last year. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of growth, regardless of who their offensive coordinator is, whether it be Jimbo Fisher or Bobby Petrino or whatever his name is. It doesn't seem, no matter who their offensive coordinator is, they still have the same problems that they had last year. And to me, it wasn't their offense that was off too bad. It was their defense that looked terrible. So maybe they need a new defensive coordinator as well. Regardless of how you look at it, Miami will probably be undefeated at least 2 more weeks, because they're fixing to play Bethune-Cookman, which makes zero sense why they keep scheduling that game. I know why Bethune-Cookman does it, because they get paid, but Miami keeps scheduling it just so they can beat up on somebody. If you're going to pick a group of 5 or a FCS team, or if you're going to do those things, go after the best ones, not the worst ones in those categories, because you're supposed to be the mighty Hurricanes. You're supposed to be a big deal. I understand that that's not been the case for the past couple of years, and that you really crapped the bed multiple times over the past 5 years. And expectations for Miami are getting extremely high again. And all I want to do is remind them that they're still Miami. So be careful with getting too many expectations, because you're going to start candy caning a lot of your situations again. You're going to pull it out. It's going to happen. Whether it be TVD that starts throwing too many interceptions, or can't get the ball to the wide receivers, or the offensive line starts breaking down, or the defense can't tackle. I don't know which one's going to happen first, but it will happen. So it has been 2 decades since you have done anything. So keep that in the back of your mind before you start talking about you want Florida State. You're going to get us whether you want us or not. But to come out and say that you want Florida State, like you're going to beat us, I'll make sure that I don't laugh too hard into the conception of that game, because I think it's still going to be ugly. While I think y'all score more than 3 points this time, maybe, I still think we're going to beat you down pretty bad. But other than that, that's pretty much all I got for them. And the best player on their team is Restrepo. That's wild to say, but and that's my opinion. I will say this out of very, very much respect to this young man, because aside from all the trolling, everyone took a moment, Florida State wise, for Cam Kitchens. He got injured at the game. They had to bring out stretchers. He went to the hospitals. I even called people that work for the University of Miami to check and see if I could get any information on how he was doing, to make sure that he was okay. So with all the trolling aside, we do wish him nothing but the best. If you believe in prayer as I do, I promise you that each night since this has happened, I have said a special prayer for that young man, because I do believe that he has a big opportunity, if healthy, to go into the NFL. And I don't want to see any young man's dreams crushed, no matter if they were green and orange or not. So I really hope that he's okay, and I hope that that y'all have him when we play at full health, because I don't want that to be an excuse on why we beat you.
Yeah, there's no doubt when it comes to that rivalry game, you definitely want to see those guys at full health. That was a scary situation, and everybody in Knoll Nation, I think, can agree that we're praying for the young man, and we'd like to see him back in there, if anything, for that matchup. When it comes to, look, they have improved. They've taken a step forward from where they were last year. Last year, it was just totally discombobulated. It was just a mess. This year, that was A&M that looked a mess, and hey, they executed and did what they had to do and beat a team that's only won 1 out of its last 8 Power 5 games, I believe, to take that for what it's worth. And I seem to remember, back in like 2013 in the Jimbo era, even multiple years, they would have these light front halves of the schedule, and they would come in undefeated every year to Doak, or we'd come see them with them undefeated. I believe in 2013, they were like number 7, and it ends up being 45-17 or whatever the final score was. So, yeah, don't get your hopes up too early for sure, Miami fans. It's going to feel real good. They will be able to, like Chris said, get some momentum, because they don't play nobody until I think they've got 2 or 3 games before they play North Carolina, and then they got another cupcake after that. So we'll see what happens, where they're ranked hopefully they're ranked in the top 15, top 10 by the time they come to Doak Campbell. That's our biggest home game this year. The guys are going to have a tailgate. That game is going to be really hype. When you talk to like Knoll fans around the state, around the country, that's one that most are going to try and get to. So I don't know how everybody's going to get a ticket to that one, but it's going to be a great one on the schedule, and it's most likely to be a one.
LFG, we see you. LFG does this on a regular basis, does this all the time. It's a very simple thing to do, seems kind of meticulous, but it's important. He says, I hit the like button. I was number 37. Boom. He does this like 4 times a day on my shows. LFG, thank you so much for that, because that shows everybody else I hit the like button. Why don't you hit the like button? We've got 154 on the line. We've had over 300 people come through, and we've got at this point 37 likes. So we should have many more than that, because I'm guessing that most of you have indeed liked what you've heard. All right. Again, catch Chris and the rest of the crew there at Spear Addicts. It's every Monday. It's Thursday, 8:30. 8:30.
Just 8 o'clock.
Just 8 o'clock. My bad. 8 o'clock. I got the previous time mixed up with the new time. 8 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night, Thursday night. Start there and then just make that a regular habit every Monday and Thursday. George at the Renegade Report. Check him out. And please subscribe over there. We want to get George to 1,000. We want to get Den Media Group to 3,000. And George, we hope that on the post-game show, you're shoving that down people's throats to say, subscribe to my channel. But get James to 3,000. And James always makes it pay off for people. So, man, he's a benevolent one. That's been one of his, not just running linebackers over, but that's been one of his calls in this life, certainly. So we appreciate James. All right, folks, you three make this go. Without you, we don't have a channel. We don't have a show. So, George, thank you. Chris, thank you. James, we appreciate you as well. You know that. We'll see you back here next Wednesday, everyone.